Welcome, everyone, to Cashin' In with Carville for Thursday, December 2nd. I'm Zach Ewing with Devin Jackson and Jim Derry for At the Book. I said Cashin' In with Carville. We're going to do that first. It's actually At the Book, isn't it? The joys of live TV. We're coming at you from all over the U.S. I'm in New Jersey for the Sports Betting Conference, North American edition for 2021. Jim, you're at the book. You're at Harrah's Casino in New Orleans. Devin's at our New Orleans headquarters. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. It's crazy down here. What an atmosphere. I see what you were enjoying last week on Thanksgiving, and it's pretty festive right here as we go about 2.5 hours before game time.
Yeah, we've been counting down to Cowboys and Saints. We'll talk plenty about that. The line has moved. We've got injury news today. The line is all the way up to Cowboys -6. I've even seen a 6.5 or 2. I believe it's still at 6 at Caesar Sportsbook. But it's crazy right now, and we will talk plenty about the Saints and Cowboys. But we do want to start with a special live edition of Cashin' In with Carville here on bet.NOLA.com. So let's bring on James Carville for this week's picks on Cashin' In with Carville. Well, there's James Carville. It's Cashin' In with Carville for Thursday, December 2nd, coming to you live on At the Book this week. Zach Ewing along with Devin Jackson and Jim Derry. James, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Columbus Circle in New York City. That's a kind of warm night up here. So if you're in New Jersey, you got probably.
I'm in New Jersey. I'm headed to Manhattan right after this, actually.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to go see
You might see me on the street.
All right. We're going to go see the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center. They just lit it, so.
Yeah, I'm going to drive by that. I got to go to something in Lower Manhattan, so I'm sure I'll go by take Fifth Avenue.
All right.
Christmas tree.
Since we've all got plans, then let's get to the picks this week. But first of all, I guess before we get to the picks, we've got to ask you, you've got the hat on. Scott Woodward landed his big fish this week at LSU. Brian Kelly is the new head coach of the Fighting Tigers. What are your thoughts on, obviously, a very big hire?
Scott came down here, and he told me that you got to understand, James, this is at least a top 3 coaching job in college football, maybe the best. And he was the AD at the University of Washington, was the AD at A&M. He's the most experienced athletic administrator by far in the United States. And his assessment was right. And it was kind of seeing everybody going, well, Lincoln Riley's not coming here. This has happened, that's happened. The whole time he knew exactly who he wanted. And this guy is like, all he does is win. I mean, if you just look at where he's been and what he's done, he's a winner through and through and through. And I think that, I think we got an outstanding president in Baton Rouge. We got an outstanding athletic director, and we have an outstanding head football coach. I mean, I'm as bullish about LSU as I can possibly be, and I think for good reason. I think the future of LSU Baton Rouge is bright on a lot of different fronts.
Yeah, and obviously Brian Kelly thinks so too. I mean, for one thing, they put an awful lot of zeros on that number next to his salary. But besides that, it seems like he really buys into the idea that you can come to Baton Rouge and not just win a championship, but win multiple championships.
Well, we won 3 in this century with 3 different coaches, right? I mean, of course he buys in, and that's why he's here. He's not here for any other reason. He's not here to win the SEC West, all right? He was placed here to win championships, and I think there's a good chance he's going to do that. I know he if you look at his record, it's hard to imagine, a better resume that ever came to LSU or most anywhere else for that matter.
Oh, in fact, Notre Dame still has a chance to get to the playoff this year if things go right on Saturday.
Right. And I wish him well, but man, it startled people to think, well, somebody's going to leave Notre Dame to come to LSU. Yeah, LSU's a much better job. And Scott figured that out ahead of everybody else. We have a syndrome in Louisiana that we just think we can't be that good. Yeah, we can. We were that good in 2019, and we can be that good again. It's totally realistic to wish for that.
I'm getting pumped up. I'm not even an LSU fan. I'm getting pumped up listening.
You should be pumped up, and this is a huge story. And across the board, you should be pumped up about football. The basketball team looking good this year. The baseball team is going to be gangbusters. This guy is the best college baseball coach in the country. Women's basketball is on fire. Gymnastics stays on fire. I mean, what's there not to like right now? Not much.
No, that is true. And speaking of championships, let's get into our college football picks for the week.
Okay.
We'll start Saturday morning. Oklahoma State playing Baylor in the Big 12 championship. Still a chance for Oklahoma State to get in the playoff, maybe even an outside chance for Dave Aranda and the Bears to get into the playoff. Oklahoma State laying 5.5 here. Where do you come down on it?
Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State is richly deserving. I mean, they had one loss to Iowa State, and they beat Baylor. They're going to be hard to keep out. I don't think you can take a 2-loss Alabama ahead of a 1-loss Oklahoma State.
And it's a terrific defense Mike Gundy's got there, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alabama, James, the biggest game of the week, obviously, in Atlanta, the SEC Championship, the place LSU's trying to get back to. These two teams, we've been counting down to this all year long. Now it's here. Alabama's been struggling for a couple of weeks. They're getting 6.5 here. They haven't been underdogs since 2015. So what is your pick here?
They're deserved underdog, and I like the favorite.
All right, we'll take your late points.
We should have beat them in Tuscaloosa. All right, and I mean, I love LSU, and I love the effort we had against A&M. I mean, those kids played their hearts out, but we weren't a great team, and we frankly outplayed them. And Georgia is a great team. And look, there's nobody that thinks more of Nick Saban than I do. People are mad at him. It's insane. He put us on the map, and we got to pick it up. But he's not infallible. He's just Nick Saban. And Georgia's defense, somebody thinks they might have 17 NFL draft picks. It's a lot of talent there.
That is definitely true. A lot of talent too at Michigan. They have the Big Ten championship. They were obviously super impressive last week in beating Ohio State. Not just beating them, but beating them pretty bad. Now a tricky game against Iowa. They've got to win it to get into the playoff. Big line here of 10.5.
I like the underdog here. I really do. That's a 10.5 is a lot of points, and you can't imagine what Michigan put on the field to beat Ohio State like they did. I mean, that was the culmination of the season. Now they got to come back, go to Indianapolis, and play Iowa. It's just hard for young people to maintain that level of competitiveness for 2 weeks in a row. And Iowa's got good. That Kirk is one of the best coaches in college football, and they're not bad. And 10.5 points, a lot of points, a lot. Especially
in what could be a low-scoring game. And then for a little local flavor, since LSU's season is over, we go to the Sun Belt final in Lafayette. The Raging Cajuns are actually 3-point underdogs against a team they beat earlier this year in Appalachian State.
I like the Cajuns. I mean, first of all, they're well coached. Bill Napier is a hell of a coach, and I beat this team already. They got a lot on the line. Their coach is leaving, but that's not going to affect them. These kids got a lot to play for. I like that. I like their chances. I like that ball club.
All right, let's move on to the NFL, and we'll start. No, you don't make picks on the Saints, but with the game tonight, what are your thoughts on Saints-Cowboys? Pretty much a must-win for the Saints at this point.
I thought we were going to win last week. Oh, God, was I wrong. And, it's just hard for me to see Sean Payton losing 5 games in a row, but, we're seeing stuff in NFL that we don't normally see. I don't have any prediction, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to watch a game. And I think we'll know pretty early who's coming out. And I mean, I think Taysom Hill's excited about playing, but we just hadn't been that good. We got to face up to it.
Yeah, there is no doubt about that. The other NFL picks we have, Chargers at Bengals. The Bengals, a big victory against the Steelers last week. They're now 3-point favorites facing the LA Chargers at home.
I hate picking against Joe Burrow. I hope he wins by 2.
But we're taking the Chargers and the points.
Yeah.
All right. And then Sunday afternoon, 49ers against the Seahawks. Speaking of teams that are struggling, Seahawks struggling even with Russell Wilson back, especially on offense. Do you take the road favorite here, laying 3.5? I
take the 49ers. I watched the Seattle game, and something's wrong with Russell Wilson. I mean, this guy's one of the best quarterbacks in NFL over the last 6, 7 years. And there's something that's just not right. I don't know if it's coaching issue or injury or something like that, but the Russell Wilson I saw playing is not the Russell Wilson I've seen play 20 other times in my life. There's something's going on in Seattle. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem that way. And then really the game of the week in the NFL this week is Monday Night Football, the battle for the AFC East, the red-hot Patriots taking on the Bills, who we saw come to the Superdome and beat the Saints so badly last week. This line's edged down to 2.5. Bills minus 2.5. Where do you come down?
I take the Bills. They can win that game by 3 easily. And they're at home. I don't know if there was a function of them being that good or us being that bad. Right now, I hope it's the former, not the latter. But we'll find out. It's a big game. And, I mean, those people in Buffalo are going to be going absolutely nuts Monday night. That I can promise you.
That is for sure. Well, James, for a little lanyap this week, since we have Jim and Devin with us, guys, you have anything to ask James while we're here?
Well, I'll say this, James. You talk about Sean Payton not losing that much 5 in a row. He's never done it. He's never lost 5 games in a row, and I don't think this is the worst Saints team he's ever had. He's got a lot of issues, but I tell you, it's tough to pick against the Saints, even with all their issues tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and the Cowboys, they're a little bit they're better record than us, but they're uneven too. It's going to be interesting. I'm just into the game. I just want us to win. I want to get back on track here, but it'll be a hell of a night.
My question is, Billy Napier going to Florida. What did you think about that move, and how do you think that will affect the SEC going forward?
Well, first of all, there's no reason that Florida should not have a winning football program. They have the fan base, they have resources, they're located in a place that has, great talent. Obviously, Napier can coach, all right, but the view is at Louisiana Lafayette, he was able to evaluate talent. He never got 4-star athletes, but he knew who were the better of the 2-star athletes. And of course, at Florida, you can't win with 2- and 3-star athletes. You got to get 4 and 5s. And I don't think there's much doubt that he can coach him on the field. The open question is recruiting. Absolutely.
Well, James, we appreciate your time as always. Enjoy Manhattan, and I'll wave if I see you rolling down Fifth Avenue.
Good deal.
All right. Well, that was Cashin in with Carville for this week, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook here on bet.NOLA.com. Always fun to talk to the man, and it was great to have him on live tonight.
Sure, I'm glad I actually got to participate in one of those things, get a chance to talk to him. And you know what? He may be a political guy and all, but I like his strategy and what he says and his thinking process. And I know he's probably getting a little help from some people in the know, but his philosophy is a good one, and I agree with most of his picks.
He's got his bookie on the bayou. I'm kind of an outlier this week, as we'll see. I got a lot of picks that go against the grain, so it's either going to be a real good week for me or a real bad week for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting week. It was definitely tough picking games this week. You only got a limited amount of college games and NFL slate. It's an interesting week for sure. Outside of the big games, there's not a lot of lines that I liked from the NFL slate. So we'll see what happens.
See, I'm just the opposite. There were a lot of things that I did like this week, so I don't know if that's good or bad. I felt better about my NFL picks this week than I probably have in 3 or 4 weeks. So I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll find out.
Confidence can be dangerous, man, in this business.
Sure. Sure.
Well, speaking of confidence or lack thereof, the Saints tonight. Let's dive in on that game for a minute. The Saints are +6. Is that still the line behind you there, Jim?
That I can't turn around far enough to see that, but it was the last I saw. That is what the line was.
I believe that is correct. Oh, you know what? I'm looking now on the mobile app, and it has moved to 6.5. So the money continues to steam in on Dallas.
That is excellent.
The interesting thing here is, and that over-under, by the way, is ticked down to 46 now as well, which I actually agree with that move. I think the under may be the play that I make tonight. I don't like the spread on either side necessarily. It kind of feels, you said this earlier, Jim, it feels like one of those ugly games. I mean, Dallas is in not real great shape with their roster right now either. They're getting some guys back healthy, but that may be a relative term. They don't have their coaching staff. Amari Cooper's going to play, but Ed Werder reported he's going to be limited because he's still having some COVID symptoms, which I don't really understand how he's playing if he's still having symptoms. But it could be a messy Thursday night game.
Well, if Aaron Rodgers can play with a COVID toe, Amari Cooper can play with semi-symptoms, right? I mean, come on. Look, when it comes down to it, all kidding aside, Dak Prescott has scored 23 points against the Saints in 2 meetings. And does that matter tonight? I think it does. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to score 10 or 12 points. He may score 20 or so, but I don't think he's going to score a ton of points. And I think the Saints have, even without Kamara, even without their 2 tackles, I love the fact that everybody's pouring in money on the Cowboys now. But I don't feel any different about it than I did a couple days ago. I wish Kamara was playing because I made my bet 3 days ago, and when it was -5 or +5, I should say. And I still think the Saints are going to win the game. Like I said again with James Carville, the Saints have never lost 5 games in a row under Sean Payton, and I don't think it's going to happen now. I think they find a way. They know the season's on the brink. It's now or never. And look, I'm putting money on Payton, and I think Taysom Hill is going to inject some life into this offense.
Yeah, I certainly they've never lost 5 in a row, but they've only lost 4 in a row, I think, once before. So we could be in uncharted territory. Hey, we've got some comments pouring in. You saw a couple from Jerry Poor saying, good evening, praying for a Saints win on Thursday Night Football. I think there's a lot of people around New Orleans who share that feeling. Deborah said she's going with Michigan to beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship. We'll talk a lot of college football here going forward. But as we look at Devin, the Saints offense, Alvin Kamara still out, Ryan Ramczyk out, Teron Armstead out. They looked so awful last week. They do get Mark Ingram back. And then, of course, the big change is Taysom Hill at quarterback. How do you think that changes the offensive game plan for Sean Payton? And will it make a positive difference for this offense?
Well, you will hope so. I think it opens up their play action game a little bit because now Taysom Hill is a threat to take off and run with the football. And obviously you want him to kind of stay healthy and get down and not take too many hits. But I think that threat of running the football with the quarterback is always an added dynamic that gives teams trouble. And it can certainly help the Saints offense more than it can hurt, I would think. But we'll see what happens. Dallas is also getting DeMarcus Lawrence back as well, which is a big pass rushing defensive end for the Cowboys. So Saints won't be without their top 2 tackles, and they're going to have to run the football a lot and control the clock. I think this game is kind of the blueprint game of the 2019 game when Teddy Bridgewater was the quarterback for the Saints and they won 12-10. You just got to run the football a lot, run timely offense, and hope that your defense looks like the team that they did earlier in the season. So we'll see what happens. But I think Taysom at quarterback, you're going to see a lot more running and design run plays and to try and get the defense to pack the box and try to take their shots when they can.
You're watching At the Book here on bet.nola.com, brought to you by the Caesars Sportsbook. I'd like to remind you that you can sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook app at NOLA.com/Caesars. Get a $100 bonus at launch, which we're expecting in a month or so, probably right after the first of the year. Been at the sports betting conference here in New Jersey all week. It's been a great time. Really excited about the way that sports betting is going. The future is just fantastic. And so we do want you to be a part of that. Sign up at NOLA.com/Caesars and follow us every week on bet.nola.com. Guys, let's dive into the college football championship weekend ahead for a few minutes, and we'll circle back to Cowboys and Saints at the end of the hour. It starts tomorrow night. I believe the Conference USA game is a Friday night affair, as is the Pac-12 game. And so we'll start there. Utah is a 2.5-point favorite against Oregon. This game is in Las Vegas. Of course, these teams just played a couple of weeks ago, and it was ugly. Utah won it 38-7. I don't know that it was even that close. And Is there any reason to think this will be different? I mean, I don't think it'll be a 31-point game, but if I'm picking here, I've got to have a reason to go against Utah after what I saw a couple of weeks ago.
Only thing I will say is that it's tough to beat the same team twice in the season in college football. And Oregon's looking like it was only 3 weeks ago, so we don't have much of Oregon not playing against Utah. But I do think this will be a different game. I think Oregon is going to be a little bit more prepared. They're not playing at Utah, so it's more of a neutral site environment. In Oregon, I think they come into this game knowing what they have to do. Obviously, they're out of the college football playoff run. I mean, they need a miracle to even get close to getting in, and I still don't think it'll work. But they're still playing for a Rose Bowl. So I think they'll come out ready to play. I think they're going to try and control the line of scrimmage a little bit better than they did in the first meeting. And I would think Oregon is a good play here just because based on the fact that it's tough to be a team twice in the season. And then Oregon, I think, is the better football team. But I think Utah just played better on that particular Saturday.
Maybe I was just burned by picking Oregon that week and just, couldn't even watch the game after halftime. Jim, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this. When I see a line that's 2.5, it tells me the lines makers are begging me to take the favorite, and I'm not biting. I agree with Devin. I think that Oregon just had a bad game, and I think they're in a position to where they can still make something really nice out of their season. They can't make the playoff, but they can make the Rose Bowl, and I think Oregon's going to be much better this time around. I'm not laying 2.5 with Utah.
Yeah, I mean, listen. The Rose Bowl against Ohio State is one hell of a consolation prize. Like, these teams aren't going to make the playoffs. They are playing for something, and it's probably against Ohio State unless Ohio State is able to sneak back into the playoff. But at this point, you think that's probably who it's going to be if Michigan makes the playoff. Either Ohio State or Michigan, I suppose, if Iowa were to beat Michigan. Anyway, Robert, we all make bad picks, man. That's all right. We all make bad picks. Moving on to Saturday's games now. These games are more really involved with who will be in the playoff. Right now, your top four is Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and Alabama. Alabama's third and Cincinnati's fourth right now. But fifth is Oklahoma State. They're waiting in the wings. They're 5.5-point favorites against Baylor. Baylor's starting quarterback is questionable in this game, which is not a good place to be against an Oklahoma State team that just has maybe the best defense in America. Jim, you like the underdog here. What are you thinking?
Well, I think Dave Aranda is going to find a way to make things happen, and I also think that what I saw from Oklahoma State last week, even though they won the football game, I just don't think Oklahoma's very good. I think that Baylor's been playing better down the stretch, and I think that's too many points. I think it's going to be a really tight game. I'm not sure Baylor wins the game outright, but I really do think that they're going to keep it super tight, and I think it's going to be lower scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the way I would play it too, is the under. I do like Baylor. I don't feel real strongly about it, but I did put it in big bucks. I'm the opposite of you. I did not like a lot of games this weekend, so I was searching a little bit for big bucks picks, but this was one I went with Baylor. How about you, Devin?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. I don't particularly like the line because I think this is going to be a close game between these two teams. Both great defenses, both led by their defenses. Offense, not really a forethought on either team's mind. So I would probably if I had to take a team, I would take Baylor to cover. I think Oklahoma State ultimately wins. I think they're going to make just a few more plays. I worry about Baylor's offense and kind of the revolving door they had at quarterback. But if Baylor can control the game and run the football, I think Baylor has a good shot to win this one.
You're watching At the Book on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. Hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Keep leaving your comments. We'll get to as many as we can. Moving on to more championship game action on Saturday. The next one we've got to believe it. We have Cincinnati and Houston up next. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We'll go to Sun Belt. We talked about this with Carville, App State, and UL. This is another rematch, and it was a game won by the Raging Cajuns rather easily in the regular season. But App State comes to town, comes to Lafayette, and they're favored still. What does that tell you when you look at what the odds makers have done, Jim?
Well, it tells me they still think Appalachian State's a better team, and power ratings wise, that's where they have it. And I think Billy Napier leaving is going to have an effect on this Cajuns team. How can it not, right? So there's one of two ways they come out. They either play and inspired and say, whatever, our coach is moving on to greener pastures, or they play flat. But I don't think it's necessarily all about them. I think Appalachian State is still the best team in the conference. And even though they went to UL and lost, I'm not so sure they're not still the best team. And like Devin said, it's tough to beat a team twice in one season, especially when you're talking about good teams. And Appalachian State, I think, has a little bit more experience kind of in this position over the last 10 to 15 years. And I like them here in this game.
Devin, you followed the Sun Belt pretty carefully. Where do you come down here as they get to the championship game?
Yeah, I talked about earlier in the week that kind of being a weird line. I still think UL should be favored in this game. I just think they played like a more consistent team all season long. I do think Appalachian State is a really good team, and I think if they play up to their potential and exactly how they should play, this game will come down to the last moments. But I do think that the extra added kind of boost of knowing that there's not going to be another Billy Napier game for UL will be kind of a rallying point for the Raging Cajuns. I do think they probably struggle or a little nervous in the first half, but I do think in the second half they'll get it together, get turnovers that they need, and end up winning the game and send Billy Napier off with the Sun Belt Championship. I do believe in 2019, though, these two teams met in the Sun Belt Championship, and Appalachian State won that game. But I do think UL gets revenge on Saturday and end up winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, App State had UL's number for a long time until the last couple of years. And, of course, last year it was Coastal Carolina that knocked them out. I'm sitting on a futures ticket for App State to win the Sun Belt at 5-1 from preseason. So I like my spot. I may hedge just a little bit because I don't feel real confident that they'll come through, but I do think I'm in a pretty good spot there.
Were you bored when you made that pick? I mean, who bets on a Sun Belt champ? I mean, you had to be like, I got nothing else to do. You know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to go bet on a Sun Belt champion.
Listen, value sits where value sits, okay? If value's in the Sun Belt, that's where it's at. And
well, I definitely buy the – hey, I'm joking, but, I definitely buy the ticket from you 5-1. You got to like your odds now.
Yeah, they are favored. I think they're minus 150, so I'm looking pretty good on that one. Moving on now, another big game for playoff purposes, the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Houston at Cincinnati. This is one of the conferences like the Sun Belt where the higher seed gets to be at home, and so this is at UC. They're 10.5-point favorites. And again, Jim, I go to you first because you have come out pretty strong saying you like the dog here.
I think it is chaos Saturday. We're about to go into chaos Saturday where all kinds of crazy things. Don't you just think Notre Dame's going to get in some kind of way? I mean, they just have to get in some kind of way because it makes no sense that with the weird year we're going to have, it's just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no way it's going to happen. I think Houston's going to win the game straight up. I don't think Cincinnati, as well as Cincinnati's played in some games, in other games they haven't played very well. I watched them against East Carolina the other day. They struggled for about a half. And I've watched them in other games. I watched them against Tulane struggle. Tulane had a chance to beat them. I'm not sold on this Cincinnati team at all. And Houston's just kind of flying under the radar, and I think they can make a muck of this whole American Conference thing. And I know you love Cincinnati and don't want that to happen, but just make a mess of it. Make a mess.
I just want to see. I want to see the have-nots get one for once. Although Cincinnati's joining the Big 12, so they're not a have-not for too much longer.
I will say this: I think the refs. And don't you laugh at me when I talk about conspiracy theories. Don't be surprised if Houston gets the benefit of some big-time calls in this game, because if you don't think the NCAA wants Houston to win, or if you don't think they don't want Houston to win, you're crazy. They don't want Cincinnati to win this football game.
My counter argument to that, though, is that these are going to be American Athletic Conference officials, and the American Athletic Conference does want Cincinnati to win. They've never had a team
officials
in the playoff.
don't care about that.
If the conference tells them to care about it, they
Who's
might
got
care
more
about
money, the NCAA or the American Football Conference or the American Athletic Conference? Answer that.
it. I guess who has their ear more would be my question.
Just
Robert
saying.
says Cincinnati rolls. They like to run it up. He'll bet you a bowl of gumbo and half a po' boy at Liuza's.
You're on.
That's
You're
Cincinnati.
on, Robert.
Listen, somebody's going to be eating good, man.
Yo, I
Somebody's
get the
gonna
10.5 though, right? I'm not betting that a money line bet. I'm not giving up.
What?
I mean, it's only a bowl of gumbo and a half a po' boy, and I love Liuzas, but I'm not giving that away. You got to give
the money line's like plus 350, so I guess you get like 3.5 bowls of gumbo. Oh no, he's okay. Robert says yes. You're
there. We
getting
go.
10.5.
We're on.
Okay.
You're on, Robert.
All right, you guys are going to have to connect after Saturday. Devin, talk some sense into us, man. What do you see here in the American game?
So I think this game goes either one of two ways. I think Cincinnati blows out Houston straight up, or Cincinnati loses. I don't think this is going to be a close game on either side of the coin, just because of how they're built. Cincinnati's built to control the game and suffocate offenses with their defense, and Houston is built to play big play football. So if Cincinnati finds himself down early in the first half and things don't get rolling for them early in the third quarter, this could turn ugly. So I do think Cincinnati ultimately wins. I think they win by double digits, but I wouldn't be surprised if Houston came out swinging, came out with a few trick plays, pull out all the stops to try and knock out Cincinnati. But I don't think this is going to be a close game on either side of the coin, but I do have Cincinnati winning.
All right, a couple more conference championship games to get to. If you can't tell, we're trying to build some suspense before we get to the big game of the weekend. So next we're going to go to Indianapolis, the Big Ten. This is the primetime game, along with Pitt and Wake Forest in the ACC, which I don't even think that I made a graphic for. So if anybody wants to talk Pitt and Wake Forest, let me know. But Iowa and Michigan, Michigan's up to minus 11 now. So the steam is on the Wolverines here, which is interesting because, as James Carville mentioned, and he makes a good point, there's a serious letdown possibility for Michigan here, a serious one. You just had the win of the century for Michigan football to beat Ohio State in that situation. Now you turn around and face not just a good team in Iowa, but one of these teams that if you're not on point, they're going to hit a pick six against you or a sack fumble or something, and you're down 10-0, and being down 10-0 against Iowa is like being down 20-0 against anybody else. I mean, being minus 11 with a total of only 43.5, that means they don't think Iowa's going to score very much. And Jim, again, I'm going to go to you first because, again, you like the dog here.
I'm staying with my Chaos Saturday theme. And Carville stole my handicap. I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, you're coming off this big win. They put every ounce of effort they had for probably weeks. They probably were even thinking about it when they lost to Michigan State. I mean, all they were thinking about, all Harbaugh's been thinking about, all Harbaugh's heard for year after year, month after month, day after day is you got to beat Ohio State. Well, guess what? You finally beat Ohio State. And then wouldn't it be just like Michigan to go out and just give it all away and lose to Iowa? I mean, I love the Iowa money line here, as we'll see in Big Bucks. And this isn't just because of Chaos Saturday. I think Iowa's defense is going to show up to play and frustrate them. And I do think there will be a defensive touchdown for the Hawkeyes. I don't think they're going to be able to score much on their offensive side of the ball, but I could easily see a 17 or 20-17 Iowa victory.
A couple of things before I let Devin talk more sense. Robert had a comment there. Michigan's defense will smother Iowa. Iowa might not score. But you said it, Jim. Their offense might not score, at least not very much. But if they're getting the ball in the 20 a couple of times, you know, maybe it's 14 or 17 points. I don't know. The other thing that I'll say is normally, yes, it'd be a letdown spot. How can you have a letdown spot with the playoff on the line? I just don't.
Are you serious?
I mean, it's this now becomes the biggest game.
What do you think meant more to Michigan fans? And I'm dead serious when I ask you this. What meant more? Going to the Big Ten championship game and even winning the Big Ten championship and going to the playoff. If you had an option, and I tell you, Michigan fans are silly. If they had the option of beating Ohio State or going to the playoff and losing, they're taking Ohio State every single time. Not only do they think they're going to just roll over Iowa anyway, so it's not just that it's a flat spot because it's a flat spot. They think they're going to roll over Iowa, and they don't even have to work that hard. They're probably thinking about the playoff already. Harbaugh is not that great of a coach.
I agree with you that they would rather take Ohio State, but it's close. It's close enough to where I just don't think they're coming out flat. And here's the other thing. Iowa's advantage against almost every team is in the trenches. They ain't going to have an advantage in the trenches against Michigan. Michigan is big up front. They're big and physical up front. Devin, am I wrong here?
No, you're not wrong. I do think Iowa ends up covering the game, though. I just think neither offense is going to put up big-time scoring. And we saw with Michigan, I mean, really until that second half, when they really got going, running the football is going to be the key for this game. Whichever team can run the football better, I think is going to win the game. But I do think Michigan ends up winning the game. Most of the time, Big Ten championships are pretty, like single-digit type of margin of defeats. They're not usually blowouts. They're not usually a dominant performance by one team or the other. I mean, even last year, Ohio State struggled to beat Northwestern, and Northwestern wasn't a dynamic offense either. So I think this is going to be a close game. Who did
Ohio State play the week before that?
Michigan. Well, no, actually, I don't think they played Michigan last year because Michigan was supposed to. Yeah, they were supposed to play them.
Schedule was all messed up
outbreak.
last year.
Yeah, it was COVIDed.
Yeah, but they were scheduled to play Michigan the week before. So I do have Michigan winning outright, but I think Iowa covers the spread.
Jim's Big Bucks are off the chain this week, as we're about to see. But before we do that, let's take a look at the game of the week. Not only in this part of the country, that part of the country, I should say, but even up here in New Jersey, people are talking about it. Alabama against Georgia from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. This is the one that we've all been waiting for really since early September, since Georgia beat Clemson and kind of staked their claim as the number one team in the country. The question has been, okay, but are they going to Georgia it up when they face Alabama? I mentioned this against Carville. It has been 92 games since the Crimson Tide was an underdog. That was in 2015. They were a 1-point underdog against Georgia and won the game outright. The last time they were an underdog before that was in the 2009 SEC championship game against Tim Tebow in Florida. They won that game outright. Obviously, these are different teams. Georgia's a much different team. But listen, Alabama's still Alabama, right?
You say so. I mean, they're still Alabama. They still wear the numbers on their helmets. They still wear crimson and white. But other than that, they're not the same Alabama we've been watching. So I'm not sure what your definition of still Alabama is.
Maybe the better question is, maybe they're still Alabama, but this Georgia team might be the best team that we've seen in college football in quite some time.
The only thing about still being Alabama that holds true is when even Georgia, as well as they played, when they go out on the field and they see Alabama out on the other side, it does have to affect them mentally. They could say all they want. Obviously, this isn't as good an Alabama team as we've seen. They struggled against LSU. They struggled against TJ Finley. And I love TJ Finley, but they struggled against TJ Finley and an Auburn defense that has been okay, but not great like it was last week all year long. It's just I'm not sure which team we're going to get, and that's the scary part of this game. And not only that, you know how I said before the lines makers were begging us to take Utah with the 2.5. Well, when they put a 6.5 line out there and it stays 6.5 all week long, it hasn't moved an inch. It hasn't moved one way or the other. And you can't tell me the money's 50-50. They want you to bet on Georgia. And that scares me that I'm taking Georgia because I'm falling into the trap. I just think Georgia is that much better. I think this is Kirby Smart's chance to make a statement and go into the playoffs with some momentum, kind of like LSU did against Georgia in 2019. But I don't like the fact that the spread hasn't moved at all. I don't know whether it's the squares are betting all over Alabama or whether there have been enough sharp money to keep this even. But it seems very odd that the line stayed exactly 6.5 all week long.
I mean, every half point in that range is so big to move to 6 or to move to 7. And so there could be, maybe it takes a lot of money that we just haven't seen yet to move it. I'm going to take Alabama on the spread. I think Georgia wins outright. I just think it's a close game either way. I don't see Alabama getting blown out. However, I will say Bryce Young has been put under pressure the last couple of weeks by Arkansas and by Auburn, and he has struggled a little bit. He didn't really struggle against Arkansas, but we saw him struggle against Auburn a little bit. Now, he lost his top receiver to a targeting suspension in the first half of that game, and he'll be back, John Minchie. But I just don't know they got enough to beat Georgia. I do think it'll be a close game, and I like getting the points here. Devin, how about you?
I like Alabama to cover as well. I just look back at the history between Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. Nick Saban has outcoached him nearly every game. And it really doesn't. If you look over the first three quarters, I mean, excluding the game from last year, because Alabama beat Georgia pretty handily. We look at the SEC championship from a couple years ago, and then the national championship from a couple years ago. Georgia was in control in both of those games, but it came down to late decision making, fourth quarter. I think it's going to come down to this in this game as well. But if Georgia or if Alabama has a chance at the end of the game to either tie or win the game, I do like Georgia's defense a little bit better. I think they're going to be able to close out Alabama this year with what they have on defense, and I think it'll end up probably being like a 27-23 final. I think, but I'm taking Georgia to win.
Yeah, I agree with you, Devin. We finally found where Robert and Jim are on the same side there. They both like Georgia. So let's do big bucks real quick. You're watching At the Book here on bet.nola.com. We're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook app at NOLA.com/Caesars. Get your $100 bonus. Looking back real quick at last week's results, it was another ugly week for Jim Derry. Trusting the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, you love saying that.
It just didn't work out. Minus $206. It was a nice week for yours truly, up $147. Go Fighting Irish. Brian Kelly got the cover for me last week in Stanford. And Devin, I think you won just about every pick you made except for your number one pick, which was Akron.
See, this is my quick rant of the week. So Akron is covering with like 20 seconds left, and Toledo has the ball. And
I missed this.
And they're up by, I believe they were up by 28. So Toledo has the ball. They're in the red zone. Toledo scores a touchdown with 14 seconds left, already up 28 points. So that's a quick reason why that one didn't work out. But I had the right thinking, but Toledo decided to score with less than a minute to go instead of taking a knee. So
that is a bad. Go ahead.
I have to look and to go along with. Not that it matters in the grand scheme of things, because I'm down so much, but I'm not sure that I quite lost that much. I should have looked at that slide a little bit better. I gotta go.
Double check
we'll
my
worry about
work.
it after.
Double check my work.
It's still bad.
I think you lost.
It's still bad.
You lost quite a bit. You lost $140 on Tennessee alone. So
still bad.
Thank you, Robert, for the kind words there. We really just started this show a couple months ago, so we're glad we found you as well.
Robert, go find Datitude. Robert, go listen to the Datitude podcast. We're 30 episodes in, and we like to have fun on that show as well.
Absolutely. And by the way, the lesson here is that bad beats even happen to Devin Jackson. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they can happen to you as well. So Devin suffered a bad beat. He hasn't had too many of those this year, but he had one with a lot of money on the line on Saturday. So week 13 best bets. Interesting to see you go to the NFL, Devin. You've been so good on college football, but your number one pick this week is the Rams to cover a big number.
Yeah, I'm not super confident about the college football picks this weekend, just because Jim mentioned Chaos Saturday, college championship weekend. There are a lot of teams that backdoor cover, and I just didn't want to fall victim to that. So I decided to go to NFL with the Rams. They have been struggling as of late, but they beat up on bad teams this year. So I'm going to keep that train rolling. I think they cover that 13-point spread against the Jags.
And Jim, you and I are at odds a little bit here because I've got the Jets plus 6.5. Not to say that we couldn't both win these bets, but my best bet is Jets over the Eagles. I did not like the way the Eagles looked against the Giants last week. I think in the trenches, the Jets win this battle. and muck the game up to the point where 6.5 is too many points. That's the most points the Eagles have laid all year long, and they're on the road, so that's interesting.
I don't think the Jets have won many battles in any trench or anything this year. So I don't know. Look, I'm not going – you very well could cover there. I'm not saying you're not going to cover, but the reason why I love this teaser is, that 6.5 really scares me with Georgia. Okay? I have bet it already. I bet it as soon as it came out because I thought it was going to go up. So I bet it right off the bat. Like I bet it Saturday night. But with the teaser, and basically all Georgia has to do is win. I'm very confident Georgia's going to win the game. And it's weird. Devin's picking NFL games. I'm picking college games. We're having role reversal here. But as far as the Eagles go, look, the Sharps love the Eagles for some unknown reason. And I keep bringing this up because I still don't get it. But they win money for a reason. And if you look at the Eagles game last week, it was kind of a fluke. Jalen Hurts threw 3 picks. He probably played his worst game of the season. He was coming off of 2 great games. It just didn't work out for him. He's got injuries at running back. Boston Scott's fumbling the ball on the 3-yard line. So now he's down to Kenneth Gainwell, and he's going to have to do stuff on his own, even though he's questionable himself. So it is a scary pick, but I will say this. I think the Eagles, the Sharps are still on them. So I'm going to trust the people who know what they're talking about. And so I just need the Eagles, and I need Georgia to win the game there with the teaser, and I like it.
I mean, the line has gone down from 7 to 6.5, so I don't know that the Sharps are completely on the Eagles this week, but
they are.
It'll be interesting. Going through big bucks, Devin, starting with you, hit the highlights here for us.
Yeah, so MAC championship, Kent State 3.5-point favorites. I wasn't overly impressed with Kent State this season, so I'm taking Northern Illinois to win outright and cover that 3.5-point spread. Utah State, San Diego State, Mountain West championship. San Diego State relies a lot on their defense, a lot like Iowa. I think Utah State can put up points and keep it close, but I think San Diego State ends up winning that game. Wake Forest, Pitt. I know those two teams, they score a lot of points, but I just think this game, they're both going to be nervous. ACC championship, both getting first appearances in quite some time. So I'm going to take the under 71.5. I don't think it's going to be quite the offense explosion that the Sharps are thinking. Final one then I'll take note of. I think USC +4 over Cal. They got the extra boost with Lincoln Riley. I think they'll want to play well with him in town. I don't think he's coaching the game, but I think they want to give him a good showing and show what they can look like for next week or next year.
That USC Cal game, man. Is anybody even going to watch that thing? I guess you got to have money on it to watch it. Jim, I do want to take note one real quick. Look at Devin's number, 2685. Now let's go to Jim. We need a Price is Right horn, 716. Jim, you're trying to get it all back at once this week. Check out that money line parlay, those 2 money line parlays in the middle there, plus 1160 and plus 5318. So you're swinging this week. You're swinging for the fences.
Why not? I mean, you're telling me that the chances of Iowa and Baylor are greater than 55-1. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I really think that's a really good money line parlay. These are by the way, these are bets this week that I'm actually putting money on. I wanted to do it here at Harris, but the lines are a little bit too long, so I'm gonna have to get my friend to do it at Boomtown tomorrow. But why not? And you go from the outhouse to the penthouse in a hurry if you win any money off of these money line picks. But I'll tell you what, I really like some of these college picks. I really do think it's going to be chaos Saturday. I'm not necessarily certain that I'm going to hit a boatload of them. I'm not going to say I'm going to come in here next week and I'm going to have 6,000 big buck dollars, but hey, it's possible. Why not? But if you look at some of the games that I really do like, I really like Houston to cover this week. And if I had to pick one of my money line picks to hit, it would be Houston. So if you want to put Houston money line in with some other parlay and just kind of like tame it a little bit, I think you got a good shot there. Maybe even a Houston Georgia money line parlay probably still gets you some good money. I like that. And then we talked about my teaser, Iowa Michigan first half under. Love it. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, and I think they're going to come out trying to feel each other out. I don't necessarily think either one of those teams is going to score very much, especially early on. And then you go to the bottom. I love my Texans pick. Maybe it's an all Houston weekend. Texans against the Colts. I'm not saying the Texans win straight up this week, but I think they have an excellent chance to do what they did a couple weeks in shocking the world. So like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you have kind of a half round robin going on there. So if you hit that 3-way money line parlay, $10 pays 540. But that also means you hit the Iowa Baylor parlay, which means that's another couple $100. That also means you hit the Houston parlay. It's another like $70. You could get yourself back up to like 1,500 next week if you hit that thing. You'd be right back in business.
Well, there's no doubt, and I mean, and it's and I'm literally not just doing this because I'm trying to get back into it. I think these things have a nice chance. I'll put it this way: I like the numbers for sure to make these plays. I'm not just making them to make them.
And meanwhile, I'm not nearly as confident. I just got myself back above Mount 500. I'm at $2,019 for the year. We started at 2,000, so all my hard work has netted me $19 over 13 weeks. I'm taking a few swings here. I do like App State. Like I said, I have them from a futures bet, and so I'm going to stick with that against UL. You mentioned this one, Devin, Wake Forest Pitt under 71.5. I love that too. In fact, I wish I would have put more on it. I can't remember. I'm going to miscredit giving credit to the right person on this, but I read somewhere this week there have been 23 college games with a total of 70 or more this year. Only 4 of them have gone over. So when you get to a total that high, it's usually artificially inflated, especially in a championship game atmosphere. I'm thinking that game goes way, way, way under. And then before we get back to Saints and Cowboys, I do want to talk about Patriots Bills. I'm taking the Patriots on Monday Night Football. What are your guys' picks on that game? Because that will really shape the AFC race for the rest of the year.
I'm all over the Bills here. I think the Patriots have played over their heads for weeks. They're going into Buffalo. You talked about last week, Zach, about Bills Mafia and just on the road, the craziness of those guys. And what I'm seeing, there's like an 80% chance of snow. It's going to be a fun party in Orchard Park this weekend on Monday Night Football. I think Buffalo wins handily. I think they win by 10 or more. And I think they have something to prove. All of a sudden, they're no longer the best team in the AFC East. They got something to prove, and I'm going with the team I think is the best team. I think Buffalo is clearly the best team.
All right. Just to answer a couple of questions there from Robert, the podcast you can listen to is Datitude. Jim records that 3 times a week during the football season, so check that out on bet.NOLA.com. He also offers to loan you $100 of Big Bucks if you come by the fairgrounds this week. So we'll see how those parlays do.
My Big Bucks are way too valuable. I only have a few of them left. I'm not giving any more of those away.
No. He's going to loan you $100.
Oh, okay. Oh, I need that. Spoiler alert, by the way, on tomorrow's Datitude, Uncle Big Nick, we had to record our segment previously because the Saints playing tonight. Uncle Big Nick disagrees with both of you on the over-under on Wake Forest. Just spoiler alert. We'll see. Let's see if he's right.
If anybody can go over 71, it's probably Wake Forest the way they play. But a lot of times in championship games, teams get nervous. Hey, we're out of time. But before we go, Saints-Cowboys in just a couple of hours. Let's give our score predictions just like last week. Devin, Jackson, what's going to happen tonight?
I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I just don't foresee neither offense really getting going, but I'm going to take the Saints to win. I think they win 20-17. I think they get just enough offense to sustain drives, and Taysom Hill is going to be the X factor in tonight's game. I think they're going to play a lot more juiced up. I mean, this is a Cowboys team that they've seen quite a bit of over the last couple of seasons, and these games have been decided by 3 points or less in the last 2 matchups. So I expect it to stay true as well here. But I got the Saints winning 20-17.
Hey, listen, that would make the Houdat's awfully happy. Jim?
I'm going to take the Saints to win as well. I'm going to say there's going to be some weird things going on. I'm going to have a weird score, 22-19 Saints. Maybe they miss an extra point. Maybe they got to dodge a Cowboys drive at the end and hope that Zerline misses a field goal. There's going to be some weird things going on tonight, and I think the Saints find a way to win. Like I said, Sean Payton's never lost 5 in a row as a head coach. I can't see it happening here. The Cowboys have their own problems as well that nobody's talking about.
I am going to go against you guys. I'm going to take the Cowboys 23-17. I think the spread movement, some people may win and some people may lose based on the movement on that. All three of us like the under, though, which scares me because that's what I actually put money on was the under. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that, the Cowboys are a team that's been frustrated too. They've lost a couple in a row. And just like the Bills last week, the Saints are going to get their best shot tonight. So we will see. And by the way, the other note, this is not your normal Thursday night game because both teams have had a full week. It's not a short week because they both played last Thursday. So that's interesting. Dan Quinn coaching the Cowboys tonight with all their coaching staff out. He's certainly played his fair share of games against the Saints, lost more than he's won, but he's not unfamiliar with the place. So we shall see what happens.
Let me just say, Zach, I know I've jumped the gun. You usually ask for our final thoughts, but Jeff Duncan and I are going to record tomorrow's Datitude review right after the game tonight at the Superdome together in the same room. It'll be the first time I've recorded my interview in the same room with somebody for Datitude, but it should make it interesting because I usually like to win or lose. I like to think about it and ponder my thoughts, and I know Duncan does too. And this time we won't be able to. We're going to give you our raw thoughts like an hour after the game's over. So it should make for an interesting Datitude, which will come out either late tonight or early in the morning, either one. It'll be up. Check it out, Datitude, wherever you get your podcast. Just search for Datitude, Apple, Google Play, all that good stuff.
Can you do me a favor and arm wrestle Duncan so that we have a tiebreaker for Carville picks?
That wouldn't be fair to Duncan.
Are you sure about that?
That'd be
he's
like
small,
me.
but he's
That'd
small,
be like me
but
fighting him at a buffet line.
Well, you gotta do it left-handed then.
Okay. All right, I'll do it.
Yeah, just do it. Carville picks, by the way, if you want to get them in, NOLA.com/Cashin, you have to pick the Saints game by 7 o'clock tonight. So make sure you do that. The rest of the games you have until your normal 10:45 Saturday morning. But you got to get your Saints pick in tonight for obvious reasons. So go to NOLA.com/Cashin if you're playing Cashin with Carville. Devin, final thought from you.
Going to be an exciting weekend of college football. Kind of sad that this is the final full slate of the weekend. And after that will be, I think we got Army Navy next week. But then after that, it's going to be bowl games after that. So kind of sad to see it leave, but it's been a fun season. I think probably the most memorable one in recent years, and looking forward to seeing what happens Sunday afternoon once the rankings come out.
Amen to that. Amen to that. This has been At the Book on bet.nola.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Caesar Sportsbook. And catch us Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock for odds and ends. We will recap the weekend. We'll recap the Saints championship weekend in college football. Jim's at the Book. Devin's in New Orleans. I'm in New Jersey. Good night, everybody.